You are now listening to the Soul and Wonder Podcast, episode 26, Raw Food Living with Marina.
Welcome to the Soul and Wonder Podcast, where the conduits of the body, depths of the mind, and atlas of the soul are explored with devotion. Through cultural exchange, Christopher and Sara and their guests will deliver sacred wisdom from around the globe, uncovering the hidden gems of conscious living and holistic healing, all to empower you on your journey of self-discovery. And now, here are your hosts, Christopher and Sara.
Raw foods, raw foods, raw foods.
Raw foods on the Soul and Wonder Podcast. We are your hosts, Sara and Christopher. Super pumped to have you guys here. We get to interview the lovely Marina Yanay-Triner of Soul in the Raw. She is a vegan blogger, educator, and recipe creator. She promotes a high raw vegan lifestyle, and her goal is to show people how easy raw veganism can be and how fun and creative it is to add more raw foods to their lifestyles. So Marina began her vegan journey as a result of a powerful healing story in her family and discovered her own body and a new connection to herself in the process, which she will share with us in the interview. And she was also able to heal her digestion issues along with it. So Marina's brand new online course, The Effortlessly Flavorful Vegan Kitchen, is all about improving digestion through oil-free, high-raw vegan meals that are just as flavorful as they are healthy. And she goes into detail about this course later in the episode. So we're super pumped to dive in with Marina. She has a lot of information to share with you about the benefits of a high raw vegan diet. She gets personal with her story about her vegan transformation. She dives into the effortlessly flavorful vegan kitchen, say that 10 times fast, her new online course, and she gives a lot of good advice for those who may already be vegan and are looking to switch to a high raw food diet, or are people who are just interested in a high raw vegan diet in general. So make sure you stick around to the end of the episode for your health tip, which this one's going to be more about talking. Not sure what I mean there? Stick around and you'll see. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Super excited. We've got Marina with us. How are you doing, Marina?
Great. How are you?
Doing well. We're super pumped to have you on the show.
Yeah, so am I.
We're excited to get into this raw vegan lifestyle. We have yet to bring this topic to our listeners.
Yeah, this will be a first time.
This will be a first time. So, Marina, let's start off this way. What exactly is a high raw vegan diet, and what are some of the benefits?
So at first I started being actually 100% raw, and then I kind of went into high raw, and a lot of people are like, what is high raw? So it just means that most of your calories come from raw food, but not everything. And raw food just includes everything vegan that's not cooked, that's actually living, I guess. And some foods, like, for example, people get confused and they ask me, what about like chickpeas in a can, that are cold, or even things like peanut butter? And I'm like, no, that is not raw because it has been heated and processed. So I'm not against those things at all. I just like to recommend to include a lot of raw food in your diet because it's just very nutrient dense. So certain things are really healthy when they're more cooked, like tomatoes is the famous example, mushrooms, things like that. And certain foods they just retain more nutrition when they're raw.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's something that we've gotten into a lot lately, is which foods, what's the process that happens with certain foods when you do cook them, such as baked potatoes and, like you said, tomatoes, mushrooms, and then how other foods actually are so much more powerful raw. And our listeners have probably heard us talk about broccoli quite a bit, how when you actually eat a raw broccoli floret, what happens is something in your saliva combines with this compound in that broccoli floret, and it turns it into sulforaphane, a sulforaphane compound. And what that does is it's essentially It turns on all of your positive genes that help protect against disease and cancers and everything. And it doesn't do that if it's cooked.
Well, actually, I was watching, I'm quite obsessed with Dr. Greger. I don't know if you are, but I'm a total nutritionfacts.org nerd because I love just all the sciencey things. And he has a really cool video on that because, the cancer thing with broccoli is really big. But he has a video on how you can actually take advantage of that cancer protecting benefit if it's still raw. And what you do is you chop it up. And I think it has to stay chopped for maybe 30 minutes to an hour to activate that compound. I think it's an enzyme that you're talking about. And then you cook it, and then it still works the same way.
Really? So you just have to have it chopped previously for a certain amount of time before you cook it.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty cool.
Very interesting. Do you ever dive into any broccoli sprouts?
Yeah, those are so good. Yes.
We go through boxes of those.
I need to sprout more, to be honest. I always tell my audience to sprout, but I gotta do it more myself, and it's so easy.
It really is. We have yet to grow our own, but it is such an easy process. We've just been lazy.
Exactly. I feel the same way. Yep.
So could you go into maybe a little bit more detail on what some of the benefits are of a high raw vegan diet? I know you said obviously higher nutritional value, etc., but maybe there's something more specific you'd like to talk about?
I think the water content is a big one. So a lot of raw foodists, people who do 100% raw, they dehydrate a lot of food. And I think that actually takes away the number one benefit of raw food, which is all the hydration that you get from the food. So I just like to keep the dehydrated foods to a minimum. And so when you eat something that's not cooked or not dehydrated, it has all of the water content in there. So that's one of my favorites. And then another one, I know you guys like the spiritual side of things. So this is not, I don't think this is actually research-based, but this is just something that I intuitively feel, is that when you eat raw during the day, especially, I just feel that it kind of connects you more to your intuition and allows you to be more spiritual, definitely more energetic. So that's why I like to keep my cooked food to the nighttime. But it's just, there's something really awareness promoting about it, I feel.
I'm really happy that you mentioned both of those things. Number one, the hydration factor. That's something that we preach a lot in regards. So we have a few videos that we've done called the 8 Dimensions of Wellness. We're on number 5 right now. But number 2 was water and hydration. And we were talking about how it's not just drinking the right types of water, like RO water with added minerals and all that. But if you need to get your water content up and really start hydrating the cells within your body, eat raw foods. Because, again, like you said, they are very, very high in water content, and it's a really good way to hydrate the body.
And I definitely agree about the spiritual grounding with raw foods throughout most of the day. For example, we start our mornings every morning with a smoothie or a smoothie bowl, some tea, and it really gives us a good boost. I do like to have sometimes a cooked grain with my lunches because I find for my body type, it just seems to sustain some good energy for me if I want to work out in the afternoon. But I will, if we do cook foods, for the most part, it is at night. And sometimes even then, that's still raw. So if you're doing a high raw diet, you said most of your calories would be raw foods. Can you maybe give an explanation of what a typical day might look like?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I just wanted to mention a comment about the water because I found it really interesting that fruits and vegetables actually, maybe you guys mentioned this in your episode that you did, but they actually naturally filter water. So you get naturally pure filtered water, which I think is really cool. But yes, a breakdown. So smoothie bowls for breakfast. Absolutely. I love them. I do the same thing. I actually prefer smoothie bowls because then they get you to chew your food. And a lot of people, when they do smoothies, they just like down them, which is not a good idea. It doesn't digest very well. And I like it because you can shove so many things in there and it still tastes good. So I always put greens and flaxseed and turmeric and black pepper. That's like my thing that I start with. And then lots of fruit. So that's breakfast. And for lunch, you can either basically do the same thing, just different berries, fruits, different greens, or a monomeal of fruit, which I like to do, especially if it's summer and you have fruits that you really love, like watermelon or peaches or, things like that. I really like to just have like 5 peaches or 4, whatever I'm craving. But if you feel that you need something more filling, a salad is also really nice for lunchtime. And I love salad dressings. I'm sure we'll get into this later, but yes, they're my obsession. And then for dinner, anything from cooked grains alone to, making a bowl where you have some raw. You can hear my cat in the background. I don't know if you can hear her.
She's totally welcome on the Soul and Wonder podcast.
Okay, perfect. She talks a lot. So for dinner, you can have, I really like bowls because I just like having a lot of different categories in the food, like some raw vegetables, some greens, some grains, beans, and then a good dressing for dinner. That's really nice. So that's kind of a breakdown.
I like that, and I like how you add in some fruit during the day. We're huge into that. Now that it's getting warm out, we like a lot of the melons, the watermelon, the honeydews, cantaloupes.
Yeah.
Just really refreshing.
And for our listeners that don't know what a mono meal is, that's when you take one fruit and just like load up on it. And, that's something that you and I, Chris, we haven't explored just yet. We haven't quite dove into the mono meals for lunches. I know that's in the, what is it called? The 80-10?
80-10-10.
Yeah, that's a popular thing for people to do, is the mono meal lunch with their favorite fruit or a sweet fruit of sort. And I'd like to try that out.
Absolutely. We're always into trying new things out.
Mm-hmm. When you do a mono meal, how much of that fruit are you usually eating?
I like to focus on like higher calorie fruits. I don't like bananas, and I know it's a semi-secret because it's like not okay to be a raw foodist and not like bananas, but I only like frozen bananas. So I don't do the bananas. Like my partner will eat a bunch of bananas, like a whole large bunch. So I would say it's wise to kind of break down your calories by meal so that you're not under eating, because it can sometimes feel strange when you're having a mono meal because maybe you only have room for, say, 3 peaches, but you want to get about 500, 700 calories depending on, of course, your activity level and all that kind of stuff. So I normally would have 4 to 5 of a 100 calorie fruit like peaches or nectarines or, a ton of water, like a quarter probably of a large watermelon. So large portions.
Wow. Awesome. We're gonna try that out.
Yeah, very informative. I really appreciate you sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's switch gears a little bit and dive into your personal story behind your vegan transformation. Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. This morning I was at the gym and I was listening to your podcast, which I loved, with, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, Corin Sutton?
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah, great
guy. Okay, I love that. Yeah, it was really interesting. And he talked about violence in there, which I really connect to. So I thought I would talk about it too, because he was talking about being in the military and quitting the military because of kind of wanting to live a nonviolent life. So my story is, a lot of people have, their healing stories with veganism, and a lot of times it's physical healing. And in my family, I saw physical healing in my mom. She had IC, interstitial cystitis, a horrible, horrible disease. Have you ever heard about it?
I don't think so, no.
Mm-mm.
So it's a bladder disease that that feels like a UTI, but just all the time. So it's really painful, and you have to pee every 5 minutes, sometimes every 3 minutes. It's really difficult. A lot of the people that have it don't really live a normal life. So she really didn't, and she was really, really in pain for 8 years until she did some water fasting and raw food. And that is kind of the example that I saw and aspired to in my own family. So my mom actually got me to go vegan. And she was more into, 100% raw because that is what healed her. And she was so excited and grateful. For me, I really wanted to heal emotionally. And my story is when I was in high school, I was sexually assaulted. And I think that experience really impacted the way that I see violence and power relationships. So that's why I wanted to connect to violence, because since that moment, I became so aware of who's in control and how is the power divided between people, and now people and animals. And so when I started with raw food, I started just for my health, but I started slowly really seeing it for the animals and really connecting to also the story of how, cows are raped to get milk, which I never knew about before. And so the violence aspect and the power relationships and how we always see ourselves above animals really spoke to me. So that was part of the story. And the other part is dealing with PTSD, which actually Corin didn't talk about, but I don't know if he deals with it as an ex-military. It's something that I have in common with ex-military people is PTSD, and we have it pretty similarly. And I really wanted to alleviate that because in the beginning, it was really not allowing me to live life at all normally. I was a lot of times triggered by things or disconnected from my own needs and from myself, and just kind of living in shock. So living life just shocked by life. And I wasn't, it was controlling me. I wasn't controlling kind of my life. And so when I went vegan, I realized that I can control my life, my health, my body, which was so cool. I never thought about it before. And so I really wanted to heal emotionally more than anything. And I'm glad to say that the food and combined with mindfulness really helped me a lot. So even now, if I'm triggered or I have PTSD, I know that that's happening. I know, okay, this is PTSD. It's not you. It's not your fault. And it's going to pass. So that's really, really powerful.
That's a really motivational, inspirational story. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Sure.
It's one thing we find in common with so many vegans is just that they have these really sometimes intense emotional reasons for it. And there's this desperation to, like you said, take back control of their bodies, but also to, eliminate the contribution of violence and harm to other beings. Because as people who have been harmed, or we know, because I also have had my own sexual assault experience and can relate to you on a very profound level with this.
I didn't know that, yeah.
And it gives you that power to say, like, okay, you know what? I've hurt in ways that nobody should have to. And even extending that to our little critters running around, it's empowering to be able to just show that compassion and that love. And that is such a huge part of veganism that I think some people forget because they think about it for just the health reasons. And while you obviously get a lot of health benefits from it, you can also still be a junk food vegan. So having that philosophy is really the foundation. And then whichever vegan you decide to be, it just sort of grows and branches out from there.
Yeah, and one thing, that I've thought about a lot lately is actually teaching my students that being an ethical vegan is their strategy to maintain veganism, because I know from statistics that 80% of vegans stop being vegan, and that is a huge number. So I kind of see my mission as more geared towards people who are already thinking about veganism and they're either struggling or they just, gave it up. And to teach them that once you have the ethical aspect of it and you understand it and you connect to it, veganism becomes really easy.
So that's an interesting statistic that you mentioned about the 80%. You said 80% of vegans end up going backwards and not being vegan anymore?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming, because you have this online course, the Effortlessly Flavorful Vegan Kitchen, that is sort of targeted to help keep vegans want to be vegan, but also help other people who are considering to be vegan educate themselves. Am I right there?
Yeah, totally. The course is helping people with cravings in terms of just making the food delicious and teaching them how to do it and how to make food really quick. The recipes are very simple. I don't have anything dehydrated in the course or, anything that really requires massive labor and measuring. So one of the things I really like to teach is how to make recipes without measuring and how to know when you get the food that looks good in the market, what to do with it. My goal is to make people stop depending on recipes, which I think some people think it's an art, and it kind of is. I agree. Some people are better at it than others, but there is a sort of science to it that if you kind of know what flavor means and what it includes, you can create it. Because I used to be horrible in the kitchen before, and I used to hate cooking. And when I started learning and teaching myself, it just became really, really easy.
I like that you're taking the approach to help people move away from recipes. While that might be counterintuitive to our Eat to Thrive program, as it's full of recipes, I encourage our participants in the program to start to explore with their own creations. And, those recipes that we provide are all created by ourselves, and we sort of, I'm like you, oftentimes I don't use measuring tools in the kitchen. And so when I created the recipes, I had to actually measure, okay, what am I putting in there? And
doesn't it suck? Because I also have recipes in there too, to get started. And when I make recipes, it's just it takes the fun out of it, just sitting there and measuring, and it takes just the creativity and the intuition out of it.
Sure, and I think it also depends on the person. In the beginning, I am somewhat of a perfectionist when it comes to some things, especially in the kitchen. Chris is looking at me with that look. I know what that means. And it's in the beginning, I had no idea what I was doing. And so I did depend on the measuring to get an idea of how do these herbs and spices work together? What, but over time you get so comfortable and you can just smell things and know okay, this will go really well together, and I know that this is a powerful spice, so I shouldn't add too much there, or it becomes an art form. And so our Eat to Thrive program, like I said, it has all of those recipes, but we totally encourage people to start feeling comfortable and branching out and exploring it. And I love that you push more towards the creative end of cooking.
Yeah, so it's fun. And, the thing is that I do it by giving them a method. So it's not go and, do it, but sure, there's a method that kind of guides them to do it.
So if our listeners are interested in the Effortlessly Flavorful Vegan Kitchen, what does that entail?
So it's an online course, and basically you get video lessons and recipes and grocery guides and also a guide with this method, which I would love to share just quickly later on, just the basics of it. And once they register, they just get the entire program right away. They can watch it at their own pace. And they also get to be part of a Facebook community, so they get access to me, to ask me questions, to help, guide them through it. But the whole idea is just to teach them how to make really fast and easy recipes that they can also take on the go if they're working or whatever, and just know their way around the kitchen, basically.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it helps to reconnect them with their food too, which we believe is very important, that reconnection phase, which actually we feature in our program as well, which is stage 3. And it's really, really important to get to know your foods and your way around the kitchen. And that way, after you kind of integrate and do all those things, you then have a better sense of, what to do and how to create these meals intuitively.
And tapping into that energetic, the energetic aspect of the foods and how they're influencing you positively or negatively, depending, if you're eating nothing but healing foods, it's going to be nothing but positive, but, So what's this method that you said you'd like to share?
Yes, so I would love to share it now. And one thing that I forgot to say that is also part of this method is that I have found that a lot of people add a lot of oil to their food in vegan cooking. And that is kind of one of the mistakes that I see in people, because I used to do it as well. And one thing it did for me is just horrible digestion. And people don't really know how to cook without oil. It's just such a basic thing to them, So I like to teach how to make your food flavorful, hence the flavorful in the name, without the oil, because I know it's confusing. So the method is basically for making your salad dressings, dips, and sauces, because I think those give your food the most taste, deliciousness, flavor, etc. If you're just to have broccoli on its own, it's not going to be as good as with something delicious to it. So the method basically is 7 categories, and hopefully I'm not going to trip on this, but I'm going to tell you the categories. And what you do is you just pick 1 or 2 items. You get a whole grocery list it's broken down by the categories and the items in each category. There are a lot to choose from. So you just pick 1 or 2 from each category, throw it in the blender, and you're done. Very, very easy. So the categories are as follows. There's fat, salt, sour, and sweet. And then flavoring. So that's your spices basically, but it can also be fresh ginger, green onion, things like that. Vegetables. So I use veggie based like tomatoes or bell peppers to kind of give it more bulk and nutrition, but to lower the fat a little bit. And then the last one is, see, now I'm forgetting. Here, it's come back to me. The last one is thickener. So that's basically either chia seeds or flax seeds, and it's meant to give you your omega-3s, but also when you blend them up, they kind of like draw in the water and they make your dressing, dip, or sauce thicker. So that's the 7 steps. And then the last one, kind of a bonus one to guide you, is cultural inspiration. So if you're making Mexican food, it helps you to kind of think of the spices and the veggies and everything that would belong to that category.
That's perfect.
I love that.
Breaks it down so simply, and I wish I'd have had you around when I was exploring all of this myself. Cause
I wish I had me too. Back then, I was so confused.
I made a lot of flops, as we say, with some sauces in the past, but now it becomes so intuitive, and all of those categories you mentioned are so important. And once you have one thing from those categories together, it's just amazing. And I'm definitely going to try out your method particularly and see what I can come up with there.
Ooh, I'd be excited to see. There's always, it's cool because there's endless possibilities,
Mm-hmm.
So if our listeners are considering adding more raw foods into their diet, what would be your advice to them?
I would say, first of all, most importantly, actually I made a video on Facebook Live today about this. Don't pressure yourself. So many people message me and they're like, I want to be 100% raw. What do I do? And the first thing I tell them is, do not think that you have to be 100% raw. And if you're not, then you're eating unhealthy. Just add more raw and enjoy it, and know that a whole food plant-based diet is the way to go. Don't put pressure on yourself. So that's the first step, which I find really important to say, because, I feel like vegans are more susceptible to eating disorders. So I do not want this to become an eating disorder.
Sure.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is, like you guys said, you love your smoothie bowls, and I'm totally on board with that. And I think it's really easy to make a smoothie bowl. It's fast, it's delicious, and it's really, really nutrient dense. So I would definitely recommend starting out with beginning your day with a smoothie bowl and having some greens in there, some healthy fats, a little bit of seeds that you like, and some fruit, and make it really filling. Make sure that when you start out, just track your calories a little bit. Don't make it, something you have to do, but just when you're starting and your portion size, start to track what kind of fruits you're putting in there so that you get enough of your necessary calories. So that'd be anywhere between 500 and 700, 800. And then I also recommend starting your meals with a little bit of fruit. So even if you're having a cooked meal, it's nice to get started with just some fruit before your meal, because it helps with your blood sugar. It helps you be less hungry and, reach for more sweet kind of junk food. And it's just pretty much everybody loves fruit. So I think it's a very easy thing to do. And of course, learn to make your sauces, dips, and dressings. So because they themselves are raw for the most part, and they contain also great nutrition. Spices are very nutrient dense, so it's great to include them in there. And, your nuts and seeds in relatively small amounts, reasonable amounts, are great as well. And and if you can have, even if you are having cooked food, which is totally fine, to have some, of your green leafy vegetables on your plate in your bowl, and to have your dressing, you're already having pretty much, a big portion of your meal raw. So that's really easy. And then you can add your beans, which are super healthy, lentils, other grains, whatever you want.
Perfect.
Great. Thank you so much for that.
Wonderful
And
advice.
to add a little something in there, since we do a lot of smoothie bowls, as we mentioned, great base for people that are listening is avocado. So we add avocado to almost all of our smoothie bowls with, obviously, we have a lot of frozen fruits, strawberries, bananas, other
Whatever we have
berries,
on hand.
pineapple, and everything else, and then maybe a little green, and then, like you said, some seeds. We do like the flax, we like the chia, and we also love hemp seeds.
Me too, especially after a workout. I love them.
Throw a bit of cacao powder and maca powder on there, maybe some coconut shreds or something tasty. You're good to go.
Sounds delicious. I've never tried avocado. I gotta try it. You know what I love is avocado mousse. Yeah, I'm gonna try it now. I love avocado mousse. That's like my favorite dessert, and it's so easy. Just avocado, whatever sweetener you like, and cacao.
Oh, yeah.
So it's probably similar to that, so I'm sure it's really good.
Well, it really helps because it actually thickens the smoothie bowl up. So obviously the more liquid you add, the thinner it gets, but the avocado really thickens it up and gives it a beautiful base.
And I just love operating off of those healthy fats right from the start. I find that my body functions well on that. And it's so good for your skin and your hair. And avocado is just great for everything.
I used to hate it when I was a kid. My family used to force me. They were always in the healthy mindset. And this was such a mistake. Don't ever do this to your kids. They used to force me to eat avocado just with nothing. Just munch on avocado, and it just made me hate it, but now I love it.
Well, I'm glad you got over your despise for that.
Yeah, totally.
So where can our listeners find you if they're interested in connecting?
So I'll give you guys the link to the waitlist for the course because it's currently closed, but you can waitlist and then you can be the first to hear when it opens up again. I'm also on Instagram as Soul in the Raw, on Facebook as facebook.com/Marina at Soul in the Raw, on Pinterest and on YouTube all at Soul in the Raw.
Perfect. And we'll link all of those in the the description of the podcast.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Marina, for your wealth of knowledge on the high raw vegan diet and the benefits. Thank you for sharing your transformational journey. I think our listeners will be super excited to check out your online course, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. It was a lot of fun.
Yes, lots of good information in that one.
She got a lot of good pointers. We're going to try some of those ourselves. Maybe some mono meals are in our future.
Let's do it.
Well, now it's time for your health tip of the episode. And it is on talking.
What?
Something we do every day and probably way too much of. But I'm going to talk about why talking is good for initiating that self-healing cycle. As a life coach, my job is to create that safe space, that sacred space for people to come to explore the confines of their mind. You know, I use the art and science of coaching to help ask those questions, and the really good ones that get right in there, that let that person sort of dissolve their ego and just explore. So why is this so beneficial? Why are people experiencing great self-development through therapy, counseling, coaching, mentoring, or just even having a best friend to talk to? It's because sometimes the concepts that are in our mind are not so tangible. We're not able to really touch it and feel it and understand it because it's still hidden in the clouds, right? But once we start talking, especially to someone we feel comfortable with, we can start to explore things that we maybe didn't know were there. And you'll find that if you start to talk and talk and talk, sure, maybe at first the ego comes out. You're trying to make the person feel a certain way. You're trying to shine a certain light on yourself. But if it's someone that you really trust, after a while, those barriers start to dissolve. And next thing you know, you're saying things. You're having these aha moments. You're experiencing the knowledge within yourself, that innate God-given wisdom unfolding into verbal interaction. And it's a really beneficial space to be in. So what happens when we don't talk, when we bottle things up? That actually increases our stress levels. It puts us at a risk for things like depression, disconnection. We start to feel isolated. And we start to feel like people don't really understand us as well. And to be honest, that's not a fair assessment, because maybe they would if we would talk and let them in. So talking isn't always easy. Sometimes people would rather keep those difficult times to themselves. I'm guilty of it just as much as anyone else. But when you can find that person, whomever it may be, whichever profession or just best friend, to sit there and open up the floodgates, just let it go, without judgment, without fear, without anxiety, just explore the words that you create to get these ideas across, you'll find that you have so many answers within you. And as we say with coaching, I believe that every client comes to me whole and complete, ready to generate their own perfect solutions. I'm just there to help them find them with the right questions. So I encourage you, talk to a friend today, talk to a family member today, especially about that sticky stuff that's hard to reach and understand. We want to get in there. The only way to dissolve that is to bring awareness to it and move forward. And of course, if you are interested in signing up for a free session for coaching, you can go to soulandwonder.com/free-session. And with that website link, you'll be able to schedule a free session with me. No commitment, no pressure. We can explore some of the blocks and barriers you're experiencing in your life now. And basically, I let you talk, and we'll take it from there. Hope you enjoyed this episode. It's always a pleasure.